Well, hello. It's time to start doing section 4.1.6. This is hopefully going to be a very quick lesson in that, maybe 4 or 5 hours. No, I'm kidding. We're going to go ahead and do some problems quickly. And then if you need to pause and rewind and pause and go backwards, forward, whatever it takes to figure out what's going on, you can do that on your time. So here we go. In the very first problems of 416, basically the whole point of this chapter is learning how to graph a line without using an XY table. Up to this point, if I say graph a line, you make an axis on a piece of graph paper, you pick a few input values for X, you calculate a few output values for Y, sometimes successfully, sometimes unsuccessfully for some of you. And then you try to graph them and make your straight line. Well, there's something more powerful, and it comes from the pattern that we've been generating with the growth rate and figure 0 information that we've learned about throughout this chapter. So as we go forward here, there's a couple of problems you should be doing for these are our warm-up problems. 454 parts A, B, and C, and D, E, and F on the next page. For each of the graphs at right, answer the following questions. How is the pattern changing? That is based on the graph. How many tiles in the pattern? How many tiles is the pattern gaining or losing for each figure number? It increases. Second part, how many tiles are in figure 0 according to the graph? And then write a rule for the pattern y equals mx plus b. So as I look at part A here, and the parts that you'll fill out are at the bottom. As I look at graph A, what I'm seeing right away is that this graph is showing me the growth rate. So if these are my figure numbers, and these are my number of tiles, then this figure is saying that it's going to grow 2 tiles for every one figure. 2 tiles, 1 figure. So as you increase the figure, as you advance the figure number, you are increasing your number of tiles by 2. So I can automatically say that my growth rate is equal to 2. And remember, the growth rate is m. So I know m is 2 for this picture. And the y-intercept, figure 0, which is letter B for the, or it's a B variable, parameter, sorry, is going to be where that graph starts, which is right here at 2. So I can say that B equals 2. If I take this 2 and that 2 and plug them into my y form equation, and it's going to go something like the following here. So we know that it grows by 2. How many tiles does the pattern growth for each figure? By how many pattern? Wow, I can't read that. How many tiles does the pattern growth for each figure? Wow, that should have just said grow. Bad typing, Mr. P. So how many tiles are in figure 0? 2. And then my rule is going to be y equals 2x plus 2. For figure B. Figure B's got a little twist in it. When we go to get the growth rate, I see a point here at 3 and I see a point up here at 7. So my growth rate as it grows this direction goes 4 tiles, but it does it in 2 figures. So if I have 4 tiles and 2 figures, then I must have 2 tiles in 1 figure. So the growth rate, m, is just 2. Now you can see that also if you were to take a look at this graph, that there's a midway point right here. So if you go up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, that's still the same rate of 2. Likewise, the b value is going to be right here where it crosses the y-axis at 3. So when I plug in that information into my table, growth rate of 2, and I'll figure 0, y-intercept of 3, I end up getting a 2, a 3, and a y equals 2x plus 3. Last problem on this page. This one, they don't even give you a grid, but don't panic. It's still the exact same problem. One. Here. Okay, so on this picture right here, I can see really quickly that it is telling me it's going to grow 8 tiles for one figure number starting at 5. 8 tiles for one figure starting at 5, which when I go down here, erase those so we don't get in our way, that would be a growth rate of 8 starting at 5. So this is y equals 8x plus 5. And we end up getting all 3 rules correct. So the only little twist was in what that was in there was in part B when I went 2 figure numbers wide instead of 1 figure number. And you got to be prepared for that stuff. Going on, this is now going, whoa, too far. Going on to page 3. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and do a couple more, but this time the lines, a couple of the lines are decreasing. So again, you're going to do the same thing. Tell me the growth rate. And in this case, not only are the patterns gaining, but they could also be losing tiles. And then how many tiles are in figure 0? Put the equation in y equals mx plus b form. So here we go. First graph. The first graph looks to me that it is going to, as it moves over 1 figure and it moves down 2, so I'm going to call that -2. You can call it 2, just have to remember that it's actually decreasing, and because it's decreasing, that means that the rate of change is going to be negative, the growth rate. So I'm going to take my -2 growth rate, and I'm going to say I start at +8, and I'm going to fill those numbers into my table. So if I grow by -2, or shrink, I should say, and I start with 8 tiles, I would have the equation y equals -2x plus 8. And that would be one correct answer. Now let's get the next one. D, E, F, let's go to E. E, there's a little twist in E. I want you to look really carefully, see if you can see it. Maybe pause for a second and take a look. Did you happen to notice that the y-axis is counting by 2s? Here's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. But the x-axis is scaled by 1, 2, 3, 4. It's scaled by 1s, where this is scaled by 2s. That means you have to carefully count the growth. So if I'm going from this point to this point, I'm going to go up 2 boxes, but 2 boxes is 4 tiles, and then I'm going to move over 1 figure number. That's a problem, because if you're not paying attention to the fact that it grows by 2 in the y direction, but by 1 in the x direction, you might miss that little fact. And because it's growing by 2, this is 1, 2, 3, 4 boxes is actually 2, 4, 6, 8 for my starting point. So when I go to write my rule, I'm going to have y equals 4x plus 8, because the growth rate is 4 starting at 8. So y equals 4x plus 8. And now we've got 2 correct. Look at that, we're winning. All right, so now part F. Part F is another one of the ones that I think are easier, but because you're not seeing the grid, some people panic a little bit. Well, we don't have to. It's telling us that when we change 1 figure, we're going to lose 4 tiles. So the m value must be -4 when the y value, or sorry, the b value is where we started at 12. So I can then put those values into my table, and I will say that the growth rate is -4. It starts at 12, and y equals -4x plus 12. And that gets us our third correct answer. So we've just got 6 in a row. Now, again, your responsibility is to learn how this works, right? You have to figure out growth rate, figure 0, and plug them in for the parameters m and b respectively to get y equals, in this case, -4x plus 12. It is super easy for kids to flip those. So you have to know that the growth rate is always the one that goes with x. As the figure number is changing, it is growing with that number. So the figure number x and the growth rate number, they're stuck together. The 12 is what happens at x equal to 0. If you put a 0 in here, wouldn't this whole term just disappear? And all you'd be left with is just the 12. So that's why 0, 12. 12 is the beginning point. It's called the y-intercept again. Page 4. All right, now we get into the fun part. Now reverse the process. Reverse the process. Graph the following rules without first making a table. Parts A and B can go on the same set of axes, that's these axes, while C and D can go on the next screen. Label each line with its equation. Y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis, and a growth triangle. Part A, we're going to graph y equals 4x plus 3 with the purple dots. Part B, y equals 3x, that will be with the red dots. To do all this, do the following. So these are kind of like leading you to learn how to do this fast. My goal is for you to be able to graph a line in like 20 seconds. If I give you the axes set up, you should be able to throw those dots in the correct spot almost instantly and know you're right. So first bullet point, fill out the tables for A and B, starting with the growth rate and y-intercept for each equation. Then start at the y-intercept for each line and follow its slope from point to point to point. Slope is a fancy word for growth rate. When you have 3 points graphed, a line of best fit in the same color as the dots will appear. Use it to draw a line through your dots, purple for purple and red for red. In the text box below the tables, write your equation for each line to label the graph. So these are the equations. You're going to rewrite them, but you're going to rewrite them in these text boxes because I want to label the graph, and this is how I'm going to capture the equation from you. And the last thing, finally, add the growth triangle to each graph by clicking these 2 buttons. So here we go. First of all, in y equals 4x plus 3, the growth rate would be 4. And the y-intercept is going to occur at 0, 3. Now this time, which is different from last time, I'm asking you to write it as an ordered pair. So when you see this ordered pair right here, 0, b, I'm asking you to write the figure 0 as a coordinate as opposed to just writing the number 3. If you had just written the number 3, it would tell you you're wrong. So that tells you you should write 0, 3. Whoop, not like that, but more like this. There we go. While we're at it, we might as well do this one. The growth rate of this problem is 3, but you notice that this says 3x plus nothing. If I need to represent nothing, what number could I use? Oh yeah, 0. So this coordinate is going to be at 0, 0 when it's time to graph that one. So let's go ahead and do this. We're going to have a growth rate of 4 starting at 3 with the purple points. So I'm going to put a dot at 3. And I'm going to start there, and I'm going right where that one is. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to advance a figure number, because according to this, I need to grow 4 tiles as I advance figure numbers. So then I'm going to take the third dot, put it right on top of that second dot, and go 1, 2, 3, 4, and advance a figure. And now you can see again that purple line that pops up. This line needs to go through those dots. So if I were to pull that, oh, I don't know, here and here, I'm close, but I want to get right in the middle if possible. And so one way to do that is to actually put one of the dots on top of a dot. And then you could take this dot and you can either put it on top, or maybe what if instead of gaining 4, what if you lost 4 and went backwards a figure? Can you see how that would work too? So here's my line. I think we need to add the rule. The rule was y equals 4x plus 3, which shows up right there. Look at that, 4x plus 3. And put a growth triangle. Let's check out what that is. Oh, there's my growth triangle. It shows that I'm growing by 4, and I start with the y-intercept at 3. This is a complete graph. Problem number 2, we need to graph a growth rate of 3, but this one's going to start at the origin. So let's see here, starting at 0, 0. I'm going to go there again, and I'm going to grow 1, 2, 3, and move over 1. Then I'm going to go to this one. I'm going to grow 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to move over 1. Just because that line flashes in there, don't think that's what you want to do. All right, so let's see. I'll put this on top of that one. That'll, whoa, darn it, up there. And I'll put this one on top of that one. And that works nice. So this is my graph of y equals 3x. And you can see it right there. Add the growth triangle. And I think I might need to click this one again. For some reason, when I click the new one, it turns the old one off. So okay, there's my red growth triangle showing a growth of 3 for 1. Now the whole, the next purpose of this, not only am I teaching you how to graph fast, but we are going to be using this to do something called solving a system of equations. The solution to a system of equations is where 2 lines would intersect each other. And you can see these purple and red lines are coming down. Somewhere down here they meet, right about here. Well, that point is going to be important. That point, -3, -9, is the only point that satisfies both of these equations at the same time. If you plug -3 in for x, 4 times -3 would be -12. -12 plus 3 is the -9 that you see right there, right there. And likewise, if I plug -3 in for x here, 3 times -3 is also -9, the y value. So it's kind of a cool thing. It's called solving a system of equations by graphing. And yes, you're going to be responsible for that, but not now. Page 5. Again, oh, let's do this one. So now we're going to do the same process with parts C and D. This actually should say C and this one should say D. There's a typo in my work again. That's what happens when you do this so late. So I want to graph a line y equals -3x plus 8. So my growth rate is negative this time. That means that I'm decreasing, I'm going downhill, I'm losing tiles, but luckily I started with a lot of them. I start with 8 of them at figure 0. So my growth rate will be -3, and my y-intercept figure 0 is at 0, 8. So if I go plug those points in, 0, 8, you can always click on the dot and it'll tell you you're right or wrong. And then I'm going to lose 3. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, but I get to move over 1. Now make sure that you're advancing one figure. you're losing 3 as you advance 1, as you move forward 1, as you increase 1 figure. Don't go to the left, go to the right. And then we're going to go from here, 1, 2, 3, and advance 1. Oh, that dot's right there. Look at that. 1, 2, 3, 1. We'll leave that one. This one will move right to here. Oh, we could do it more. 1, 2, 3, 1. There, it looks good. I like that. And then we'll put our equation on the line. Y equals negative 3x plus 8. And our growth triangle. Look at that. See how fast that goes? When we learn this little trick, boy, it's fast. Now, as we go to the next problem, y equals x minus 1, you might notice something is missing. Well, that something that's missing is the number in front of x. We call that the coefficient of x. So over here, we had a negative 3. Yay, okay, it tells me that my growth rate is that. But there's something missing right in here. Do you notice that I don't have my number? But if I asked you how many x's you see, well, then it would be obvious that this is a 1x. So when you fill in your growth rate, this will be 1, and your y-intercept, your figure 0, is going to be at 0, negative 1. Let's go ahead and type those in, and then we'll go from there. So let's see, a 1 growth rate and a 0, negative 1 figure 0. And let's graph them. So starting at negative 1, and this one says grow by 1 when you advance a figure. So we're going to grow 1, advance a figure. We're going to grow 1, advance a figure. And then we'll, I don't know, we could do a whole bunch if we wanted to that way. But I think I'm going to leave that. No, that one's not right. This one is right here. Right through those dots. Looks good, doesn't it? And it was fast. This is y equals x minus 1. And a growth triangle for both of these would give us this picture. So here's my growth triangle, red, growth triangle for the purple, losing 3. Here's my equation, my y-intercept, and my y-intercept. Look, that point of intersection is right there somewhere, right there. 2.25 and 1.25 looks like the point of intersection. All right, page 6, ooh, 3 of them. Plot a graph that fits each description below and then label each line with its equation. You can put all of the graphs on one set of axes if you label the lines clearly. Use what you know about growth of pattern figure 0, growth rate, growth pattern, and figure 0 to help. All right, so this time they're going to give us some clues. A pattern has 3 tiles in figure 0 and adds 4 tiles to each new figure. So they tell you you have 3 tiles in figure 0 and you're gaining 4 tiles for every time you advance a figure. Use the green points to make your line, then input the equation on the line in the text box provided to label the equation. So down here. All right, so here we go. Figure 0 has 3. The traits, okay? And it grows by 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Move over 1. Grow by 4 again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Move over 1. Hey, there's our line. Now, if it grows by 4 and figure 0 has 3, and this would be 4x plus 3. Y equals 4x plus 3. All right, we have to make sure we always get the growth rate with the x. It grows by 4. Next problem, B, a pattern that shrinks. It's shrinking by 3 tiles between figures, and it starts with 5 in figure 0. Use the purple points. All right, that's easy. Start at 5 and shrink by 3. 1, 2, 3, move over 1, advance a figure. 1, 2, 3, advance a figure, right there. So if it starts at 5 and it loses 3, it shrinks by 3, starts at 5, the growth rate is shrinking by 3. How about negative 3x? Out of the box, x plus 5. And then the last one, the red points, a pattern that has 2 tiles in all figures. What? Wait, so you're telling me figure 0 has 2 tiles. Figure 1 has 2 tiles. Figure 2 has 2 tiles. 3 has 2 tiles. 4 has 2 tiles. 5 has 2 tiles. Every figure has 2 tiles. If that's the case, then you're going to get a horizontal line. What's it growing by? If every figure always has 2 tiles, by what did you grow? So in this case, it grows by 0, so y equals 0x, plus the 2 tiles at figure 0, because we know that every figure has 2, even figure 0. So I would say y equals 0x plus 2. But wait, 0x we don't need to see. Right? If you take 0 times anything, you get 0. Like the money in my wallet. So if I don't want to see it, I don't have to. So the shortest equation for a line that has every figure has 2 tiles is y equals 2. And we'll submit those just to get them correct. Look at that graph. That's a good looking graph. And everything is labeled. If you're going to do multiple graphs, please use color too. Whenever you're doing paper pencil, you should use color if you can. All right, problem 7 and 8, now we're analyzing this. So now reverse the process, okay? We're gonna reverse again. That's like flippy. We've done a 360 here. Describe the pattern represented by this rule. Be as detailed as you can. Write your answer in the text box below. So tell me everything you can about the pattern. I would say, I don't know, how about the y-intercept of this pattern is 0, 13. The growth rate is -2. Make that a math type. Because -2 and the pattern is losing 2 tiles starting with 13. 13. I think that's pretty good. So we know where to start. We know what it's losing. It's losing 2 tiles every time you change the figure number. Maybe we should add that. And the pattern is losing 2 tiles starting with 13 every time you, no, that's not like that. Losing 2 tiles every time you advance 1 figure number starting from 13. How about that? Maybe something like that. And then your last thing is going to be your learning log. I want to know everything. Graphing without a table. Put your date here, and then you're going to tell me what information do you get from your rule? How does that information show up on the graph? Where does the graph start? How do you figure out the next point, as in following the growth rate? And what should you label? What should you label to make this a complete graph? What are the things you need to label? That's it. Thank you for listening. I know this took a while, but when I missed class, I felt bad and I wanted to make sure you had a good lesson on this. So have a great day.